Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone and I've never met someone else who... Come on guys, I haven't met anyone else who doesn't want to make self-growth normal. Then make sure to smash that like button. Okay, Napoleon Hill, the author of my favorite book in history ever. Forever in human history. Ever, forever. In history. Think and Grow Rich. Crazy life changer. Super crazy. I have listened to it a swaggering 20 to 30 times, maybe more at this point. This book about how to release yourself from the clutches of a failure, or what the author called the Devil's Workshop, aka the seventh basic evil, aka the negative influence of others. Let's talk about each chapter in the book, all 12, but let's talk a little first about Napoleon Hill as a brand, for lack of a better word. He is known to talk about things in ways that are just not really normal at all. He says somewhere in Think and Grow Rich that life consists of great swarms of energy, each as intelligent as human beings think themselves to be, and that they swarm together like hives of bees and remain together until they disintegrate through lack of harmony. They are eternal and they never die, and that your own thoughts and desires serve as the magnet that attracts them from the great ocean of life. How did he come up with that? Well, the method is something he talks about in Think and Grow Rich that I have personally experimented with for like 1 or 2 months, and it boosted my self-confidence more than possibly anything else I've ever done. He says with the development of the sixth sense that there comes to your aid and to do your bidding a guardian angel. I've heard the book so many times that I remembered all those words. Who will open to you the door of the temple of wisdom at all times. And people know his work so easily. They know his name, they know the book, but it is just some of the weirdest stuff in self-help that is widely known. I think it originated from the New Thought movement, kind of pioneered by, I know Ralph Waldo Emerson was one of the pioneers of that. The inconceivably high energy material that we're talking about here is about the type of stuff that no one really seems to understand is what is responsible for stuff like the internet, smartphones, electric cars, space exploration, and the like. It is what truly connects fact and fiction. And to get back in touch with that self-confidence, I switched my back burner book back to Think and Grow Rich a couple weeks ago. I figured with my Hanukkah present, the Audible credits that my mom got me, thank you mother, if you're watching this, and happy holidays to you and everyone else, I would get this book. This book and Napoleon Hill's monolithic Law of Success philosophy, and a few others that are not by Napoleon Hill, which I'll be reviewing pretty soon as well. But let's talk about the chapters now. Chapter 1, called My First Meeting with Andrew Carnegie, doesn't really talk that much about Andrew Carnegie at all. The author tells a personal, to me, almost relatable story about he had like this almost dream-like experience with what seems to be something he revisits throughout the book. A little bit less over time, but he calls it his other self. In religions, this experience is considered a conversion experience. I totally forgot how sharp his storytelling skills were. In chapter 2, called A New World is Revealed to Me, he talks about his exploration into following his other self's instructions. He says, the other self follows no precedents, recognizes no limitations, and always finds a way to accomplish desired ends. It may meet with temporary defeat, but not with permanent failure. Where's your other self? I'm looking for mine. I'm always trying to channel that. Do you need him, her, them right now? It's almost poetic, the energy that he put into this chapter, and I guess the whole book. Napoleon Hill is he's an astoundingly conscientious writer. This one touches more on how using faith to focus any attention on converting desire into a reality by how using that is what just praying and praying and praying seems to miss. The determining factor of a prayer's power is faith. I've talked to people who are Christian and Jewish and I'm not sure what else, but none of them have disagreed with this. So just praying simply when you need something is not really effective because of faith. And when it is effective, that is also because of faith. So I guess when it's not effective, it's actually because of a lack of faith. Chapter 3 is called A Strange Interview with the Devil. And this chapter made me think. This is the beginning of the interview. Maybe Napoleon Hill was actually, like, clinically insane? I don't know, like, maybe he wasn't. In fact, maybe he was so sane that his work only made sense. I mean, he just couldn't. He could not give you a straight answer, yes or no, if you asked him, did you actually interview the devil? Chapter 4 is called Drifting with the Devil. When you drift toward what we call hell. When you don't drift, it usually has something to do with thinking for yourself, independent thought. The devil, who allegedly is not a physical earthly being, makes sure to take possession of someone's mind from a younger age by using the minds of people of older age like parents, teachers, politicians, and religious instructors. My girlfriend really wants to have a baby sometime in the future. Definitely not right now. When we have a daughter, that girl will go to a Montessori school. But this might be my favorite chapter. And it makes sense. It makes me think that because of the internet and the passage of time, all of the info in this book is now not just more true than when it was written, but also probably exponentially so because everything is so much more nuanced nowadays. And at the same time, de-nuanced and re-nuanced. And it's so weird. If you don't know what I mean by that, please feel free to check out my review of Kevin Kelly's The Inevitable. Chapter 5, where the confession of the devil continues, is where you smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm and all this other stuff, and I really appreciate it because so much work goes into making these videos. If I didn't mention in this interview, this is like it's a funny, funny good times catch. The devil has to answer every single question. So like Napoleon Hill, or as he's called Mr. Earthbound in the story, asks how to free oneself from the clutches of evil and poverty in the economy and stuff like that. The devil has to give him a very thorough answer, and there is no way around that. So all of these confessions pour out of the devil. One of them brought new light to me, the idea from Think and Grow Rich of how every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent benefit. When Hill in his works talks about Ford, Edison, Carnegie, Rockefeller, and the like, I tend to imagine Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos. Except, just like as if right now it were the 1900s, early 1900s. Elon Musk is a perfect example of what happens when you keep going, despite all the failures, because the failures just get bigger and the successes just get bigger, and life is just so magnificently huge. So like your failure can be a stepping stone to your achievement, or you can use it as an excuse for your own lack of results. And it's really about perspective. In chapter 6, this sounds so advanced, but it really isn't. Hypnotic rhythm is explained. I've never heard about this in any other book, but I think this one really explains well how skills are mastered. You see, rhythm is the last stage of habit. Nature itself will make a habit permanent the more and longer it is repeated. The habit of drifting is what the devil uses to take over someone's soul, and he controls people by making negative thinking and destructive actions pleasing to them. That is hypnotic rhythm. In chapter 7, called Seeds of Fear, it is stressed that the highest power may be used for constructive influence or negative influence. And I really believe this, but for you, the best way to prove it is to just prove it for yourself by using the power of your own thought repetitiously and letting hypnotic rhythm do the rest. Napoleon Hill is a lethal salesperson. You can just tell by his choices of questions and the orders in which he chooses to ask them. In chapter 8, there is a discussion about the definiteness of purpose. And I don't know, when he talks about things like the definiteness of purpose, I just don't really know how to explain that in ways that people who are not insane about getting what they really, really want out of life can easily understand. I don't know yet, but I'm working on it, okay? I'm working on the book reviews, I'm working on this other stuff, working on the sales. My biggest problem with Think and Grow Rich, and I guess this book, is that they are simply not that accessible. The first time I listened to Think and Grow Rich, I felt like I was being just as educated as I was being bored out of my mind at the same time by its contents. It was not easy to listen to the first time. That's why I wish there were more people to make that kind of content more exciting, because it has made billionaires out of nothing. Just people using this information, and all of a sudden, I mean, you know, after maybe 10, 20, 30, 50 years, 80, the book is almost 100 years old. I mean, if I could make content like that more exciting, wouldn't that make other people more encouraged and to like stay open to the positive influence of that content and maybe think for themselves? Doesn't sound too good for the devil, does it? But I don't know. In chapter 9, I guess we'll find out. In chapter 9, called Education and Religion, this is like the most controversial part of the book right here. Apparently because the devil and universal intelligence, commonly known as God, those two beings or spirits or whatever, they are bound by immutable laws of nature. But man is not really, he doesn't really know. We don't really know that we have rights and privileges to things that they cannot control. I didn't realize how controversial that sounded until I spoke it with my mouth. I mean, that's true. It's truly insane to think about. There is no definite plan or purpose of school. That's why how to create and maintain and thrive with a definite purpose or plan itself is not taught in school. I mean, I don't know, this chapter was like a lot to take in. I don't know, I'm very biased against higher education is what they call it. The book is very dense, honestly, in general, in many different points. But the devil really does, as I mentioned, like he has to answer every question thoroughly before. He really does give instructions on how to make schools practical and more worth the time and money and energy that we all put into them. This book was written in like the 30s, and the fact that like that information still has to be applied, and those instructions could, so many of them could still very, very well be carried out, just goes to further prove how remarkably ahead of his time Napoleon Hill probably is or was as an author. And the chapter about self-discipline, chapter 10, is a little freaky. It's actually freaky. Like he talks about the body's sewer system and, you know, with auto intoxication and improper function and use of sex. It's just like topics like that that are discussed very, very briefly in Think and Grow Rich. They're explored a little bit more in this book, and it's kind of an extension of that book. If you like that book, you will love this book. I would argue, especially if you're younger. Just wait till Direction 1 to find out the reason for that. Chapter 11 is learning from adversity, which is about, you know, learning from failure. What do you know about yourself after you fail? The benefit is that it gives you an opportunity to change your habits of thought and action. Finally, chapter 12 is environment, time, opportunity, and was it caution? When we do not actively search for and put out negative thoughts, positive thoughts, our minds will be filled automatically by negative thoughts. Because a good definition of the devil's workshop is idle, indifferent, indecisive, and indefinite time spent. Just doing nothing. Time, my obsession with time. You know what the devil said about time in this book? He says, time is nature's seasoning influence through which human experience may be ripened into wisdom. Didn't I say it was a little bit poetic? He says in the author, or the guy who re-edited part of the, I don't know, the people who edited before the publishing of the 2011 version, that if you expand the philosophy for the purpose of adapting it to the circumstances of life, you may find that it is as broad as life itself. That it covers all human relationships, human thoughts, aims, and desires. But like Napoleon Hill's take on the mutual benefits between personal goodness and business philosophy, it does further reign true in this book, and I'm very, very excited to review the Law of Success book philosophy thing later. I promised myself I would listen to it at the end of 2019. That is not a promise I'm gonna break. Like, oh, I'm gonna get an apartment. It doesn't matter if I'm single or not when it happens. Yeah, it does. I'm gonna make all this music and make all these beats and make a bunch of money. No, I'm not. The beats will be in the backgrounds of these videos. They're gonna continue to do that. I think I have just enough beats to last me for the next many, many months at least. But I got other stuff to worry about, and so do you. Quotes. The whole of what we know is a system of compensations. Every defect in one manner is made up in another. The energy with which people think may be compared with water in a river. Do not forbid these evils, just explain them. It is as difficult to get a new idea into an educator's brain as it is to interest a religious instructor into modifying religion so that it will help people to get more from life. Nothing is worth more than its cost. When a man can no longer use his hands and his feet, he usually begins to use his brain. Direction 1. If you are alive in 2019, I recommend checking out this book as soon as possible. It's a rather urgent title that needs the attention of our times. Direction 2. If you like this book and you haven't checked out Think and Grow Rich, I'll say it again. I am convinced that you either live under a rock or you do not exist. And I know what both of those are like, so I feel you if that's the case. I mean, I don't remember what the second one's like. It's been a while. But these things are not excuses to not check the book out. In fact, they are actually just excellent reasons to check the book out. So go check that book out. Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out as well. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you checked this book and if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, because it's 12:10. It's 10 minutes past my bedtime. I have work. I have to edit this video in the morning. At 6 I have to wake up early. And I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that will mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere and I will see you then.